And now it's time for more of Southern California's sports fishing voice. Let's talk hookup. This portion of the show is sponsored in part by Ford, the official truck of Let's Talk Hookup. Rancho Leonero, where your wildest Baja dreams come true. Maui Jim Sunglasses, the choice of the best captains. Shimano Rods and Reels, fish with the best. Shimano. And by Yamaha Outboards, official motor sponsor of Let's Talk Hookup. Here we go. Another great hour of Southern California's sports fishing voice. Let's Talk Hookup. Here's Pete Gray, Rock Cod Rick Mexa, and Corey Sandin.
And welcome back. Hour number 2, Let's Talk Hookup, right here on the Let's Talk Hookup app and the Mightier 1090. Pete Gray here with Rock Cod Rick Max. We're on the world headquarters of Let's Talk Hookup here, right next to the San Diego Landings in Point Loma with Mr. John Collins, the fishy guy. We call him knot and fishing expert. Having a great time learning so much today.
Oh, this has been awesome. Yeah, so much fun having John on here, just talking with a guy that just likes to go fishing and done a whole lot of it and loves sharing his info, and a great guy to get to go fishing with, and certainly a lot of fun hanging out for 2 hours talking fishing. And if you want to join us in this second hour, we want to hear from you. Give us a call at 213 area code 432-1090. Again, 213-432-1090. Not only are we taking your phone calls, John just spitting out so much great fishing information, we're also giving away a great prize. At the end of today's show, somebody's going to get to go fishing on a one-day trip on board the Freedom at a 22nd Street landing. That's thanks to our good buddy Mark Paisano from 22nd Street, and what a cool prize that
great
is.
Great boat and great operation.
Awesome. Yeah,
those guys were on the fish this year.
That is just awesome all the way around. Like you said, a great boat and a great trip and a great prize. And if you want to get your shot at that, or better yet, just your chance to talk to John, 213-432-1090. And don't forget to keep those texts coming. Those have been great so far.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, that really adds a lot to the show. We got to credit our buddy Adam Clark, who does an extraordinary job on the app, to getting the app information up there. We want to also thank our buddy Andrew, who answers the phones and does the boards back there, and sure appreciate all his efforts there to helping us out, making Let's Talk Hookup sound good on the Mightier 1090 and our app, of course. So let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, John's got a...
If I may, can I talk about one thing real quick?
Please.
Okay, it's regarding the COVID testing for these long trips. We are on the verge, and there's no question in my mind about it, especially with the government we have in California. We're on the verge of losing our right to fish in California only because of COVID. There's so many places getting shut down. We've been so fortunate to be able to continue fishing in the tight quarters we have on the boat and so forth, because we're taking every precaution possible in order to prevent the spread of COVID. I know Frank indicated yesterday that he's having COVID testing done on the long trips on the RP. I have a setup, a company coming down the morning of departure on the Independence. We're going to be doing the COVID testing, and the bottom line is you pass, you go, you fail, you don't go. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do everything on our power to prevent the spread of this terrible disease that we're being faced with right now. So I would just implore that everybody try to do their part. Stick with the social distancing, stick with the mask wearing, whatever it takes in order to keep our business
because we got to go fishing. We got to
correct.
Man, that's better. And that story that Frank told yesterday about the one guy that tested positive 3 different times on the Shogun. I mean, a potential disaster averted right there.
That's correct. And when you're on the boat for 16 days, you're down a hurricane. You're 2.5 days from the nearest anything.
Right. Yes,
anything.
Yeah.
I liked everything about that story. Just that he said the guy was a perfect gentleman. He didn't realize that he had picked it up wherever he picked it up. It just it wasn't.
What are you going to say?
Exactly, it wasn't a thing. He didn't want to be stuck on a boat, and have all of a sudden the symptoms affect him. Like it was just,
or make everybody else,
give it to everybody. Yeah. You said about tragedy avoided. Like,
I know, and I personally called everybody that's going on my trip this Thursday, explained to them about the testing procedures, and everyone but one indicated that they were more than happy to take the test at the landing. The one guy has a doctor friend. He's going to get the test the night before the trip, and I feel that's satisfactory. But all 22 people are going to get the test, and they're very happy to pay for it.
And the other thing is the test is just not a big deal like it used to be. In the very beginning, everybody talked about they're shoving something all the way, they're tickling your brain. It's just not that big of a deal. One, it's not nearly as intrusive as it was in the very beginning, and even when it was that, it wasn't that big of a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's going to be 2 seconds of your life before you go on a 16-day.
I know, and the results, we're going to get 5 results back every 15 minutes.
Wow.
We're going to have the whole boat tested.
They're going to have a lab right there.
Right there at the landing at Point Loma Sport Fishing, and we're going to do the crew and all the passengers. Everything will be done in 2 hours.
I think that's so cool. Great call. And just for peace of mind, knowing that when you're on the boat, everybody's good, and you've done everything you possibly could to stop whatever potential could pop up.
100% right.
Dig it. I think that's great.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into those jam-packed phones.
213-432-1090 is your shot. Let's talk to John. He's calling us from Escondido this morning. What's up, John? Welcome to Let's Talk Hookup.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. And again, what a great way to start off the new year with yesterday and today. I never laughed so much for 2 hours than I did yesterday. It was 2 epic back-to-back days. Hey,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Collins,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be lucky enough to go on your 8-day in June. I'm on the 8-day just before you, so I'm going to do 2 back-to-back 8 days. But I was just curious, as you're the charter master, do you get to pick where they're going to go?
No.
Or do you just let the skipper of the boat choose that? And that time of the year, do you have any idea where we might go and what we might do?
Okay. Well, with things happening the way they happen, with bluefin especially, it's almost impossible to say what we're going to be doing in June. We could wind up fishing, run down, fish the rocks for big yellowtail for a day or 2, and then run back up and fish these big bluefin. That's a good possibility. But as far as being a charter master goes, that's a misnomer for the most part. I'm the sponsor. I'm not a charter master. A charter master is a guy that puts a trip together. He has everybody on the boat under his purview. He gets everybody. He pays a flat price for the boat, and then he is chartering the boat. That guy has a position where if he wants to go fish calico bass and the yellowtail are biting, you go fish calico bass. As a sponsor, I leave everything up to the captain of the boat. They're out there every single day. They're communicating with everybody out there, and I leave it for him to make the best decision on what will satisfy everybody on the boat.
That's a good way to differentiate, because we sponsor a lot of trips. We don't charter the trips. We sponsor the trips. Basically, it's the resort or the boat or the landing that they're in charge. We just are along to help promote the trip, help fill the trip, and get to go on the trip.
Yeah, maybe bring some prizes. And then when you're going on a trip with John, the other added benefit is you have John. You're getting 2 hours of this fun on the radio show. You're going to have 8 days of a guy who's super willing to show you how to tie an RP knot, who has been there a lot of times and gets a lot of joy.
For a while.
Yeah, if John, maybe you pick up a pointer on making a cast, or man, when this guy's pulling on a fish, he angles his rod on the rail like this and puts his other hand over here, and boy, that's a lot easier. And and the other thing that I know is John puts a lot of effort into putting together a great raffle that aids in raising some money for Friends of Rollo every year. There's always fun stuff on a trip that you're going on when John's the sponsor.
Yeah, especially last year when everybody got shut down for 3 or 4 months. What I did was I put a buy-in raffle, and then I took all the proceeds of the raffle and donated to the crew as part of their side money to help make up for some of the trips.
Wow.
Good job,
to help make
John.
up for some of the trips that they were unable to go on.
Yeah. And and John and his wife Judy Collins have done so much for the Rollo program too. Used to run the Rollo program. You've taken so many kids fishing with your generosity and your time.
Yeah, my wife used to actually be the executive director for a year and a half.
Yeah.
In between the Angler and when the Independence came online. So
now wait a minute. You're retired and she's still working though.
Not exactly. She still has a job, but I help her out quite a bit.
You help her with the Independence.
I really
of course.
do.
Judy runs the office for the Independence, and
correct.
John helps out.
I do.
But you're technically retired.
I am technically retired. I answer all the tackle questions. I help her do the deposits. I answer a lot of emails and stuff like that. So it's a dual operation. But she is in charge, I guarantee.
So if you call the Independence office, is it possible to talk to John Collins?
Sure is. A lot of times I'll answer the phone. I'll say, Independence, this is John.
There you go.
You're cool. Just the guy I wanted to talk to.
As a matter of fact, I got a fluorocarbon question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, appreciate the call this morning. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John.
Nice text from Randy in Idaho, and he says, John, I know you have fished the county lakes for a long time. Did you ever get to meet Bill Wade, one of the early largemouth pioneers in San Diego? I don't know that name.
I know Bill Murphy.
Lucky Bill Murphy, yeah.
Yeah,
we don't know
Bill Murphy. Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, we would
Bill Murphy.
We communicated quite often. Bill Murphy,
did you?
And he was a pioneer of big bass fishing. There's no question about that.
Yeah. His lake was Wolford, though.
San Vicente was
San
a good
Vicente
one for him
too.
Yeah. But Wolford was a good lake, and that's been the biggest bass I ever caught was out of Wolford. So I enjoy Wolford.
You still fish Wolford?
You can't launch your boat there. You haven't been able to launch your boat there for years because of the quagga mussels. So, I haven't fished Wolford in several years.
If you think you're getting out of the story for saying your biggest fish came out of Wolford and then you don't get to brag about how big it is, you're sorely mistaken. I want to know how big that fish was that you had out of Wolford.
At that time, I tied for a lake record. It was 17 pounds, 1 ounce.
Oh, my God. 17 pounds.
17 pounds, 1 ounce.
Think about how big a 17-pound yellow is. Now imagine that as a largemouth.
Yeah, and that's a lake that they stock trout, so that's
true. They do. They stock pretty good sized trout. They don't do a lot of DFG plants in there, 5 to a pound trout, but they do stock trout in that lake.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And it's a small lake, so there's not a lot of places for those fish to hide.
Yeah.
Is that the biggest fish you've ever hooked out of Wolford?
I hooked one day about 2 years after I got that 17. I hooked one, and this thing came up about halfway out of the water, and I had to reach for my toilet paper. That thing scared, and that's when I was fishing 10-pound line, and it went back over this rock edge and busted me off. But that was the biggest fish that I know. The biggest one I know that I've ever hooked. I'm going to guess that fish was at least 20 pounds. I'm not kidding. It was a jumbo.
Wow.
Yeah.
To have a 17 and know that the one you hook and you do, like you can hear it in your voice, you can see it in your eyes. You knew that fish was bigger than 17.
I knew it was. And what's really ironic is the very next cast I hooked one. I think it was around 7 or 8 pounds, and I literally skipped that thing across the water, trying to pull on it so
just
hard.
a little 7 or 8 pounder, right? Oh my God, fish of a lifetime for somebody just skipping them across the water.
That thing was huge.
So there was an interesting text, and just to kind of put my own spin on it, Springer knot versus the Palomar knot. They're two kind of sort of similar knots. Do you like the Palomar knot?
I do not. I think it's very easy to cross a Palomar knot when you do it. And when guys wind up putting strains on it, then you got line crossed over line, and it's putting pressure on the line itself, and it breaks off.
Yeah.
I know guys that are firm believers in the Palomar knot. They know how to tie it. They tie it properly, and they're very successful at doing it. And my feeling is that if you have a knot that you've had all the success in the world with, why would you want to change?
Totally.
There's no reason to change.
But the Palomar knot's, again, very easy to cross up, especially the lighter the line, the harder it is. I've broke a lot of fish.
And it is a small knot.
I don't use it anymore.
Yeah, it is a small knot.
It's a small knot, like the Springer. But the Springer's a little... I think the Springer's easier to tie than the Palomar, myself.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both pretty easy.
Yeah, when you've tied it thousands of times, it's super simple.
Yeah.
But even still, most people that I show how to tie the Springer knot, they can tie it the first time they try it.
Yeah,
and that makes you know that it's a good knot. It's an easy knot.
Being able to tie something right is so much more important than anything else. I mean, the best knot in the world tied in incorrectly is going to fail every time.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good point. And it's like the best hook in the world.
Right.
I used to use nothing but owner super mutus on the long trips. And I had a big fish on. It came off, I came up, and it busted off right at the barb. The hook busted right at the barb. And I've never had a problem with an owner hook. And any other hook that you use, there is a possibility there could be a flaw. As good of a hook as it is,
sure.
There's going to be a time where there's going to be a flaw. That shouldn't stop you from using a hook that you've had nothing but countless success with.
Yeah.
Nothing but. I use that, and I use a troker. I use a troker a lot, too.
Okay. All right. What do you use for bass fishing?
I use a owner fly liner hook.
Okay.
The saltwater style.
Yeah.
Oh,
How big?
Cool.
A number 1 or number 2, depending on the size of bait.
Size of the bait.
And probably such a good hook because it Pierces through that little horn on a crawdad so good. Yeah, it just goes right through.
Very, very sharp.
I like that.
All right. Let's go ahead and jump back on the phones.
You got it, man. How about next up, we talked to Bruce, who's calling us from Lemon Grove this morning. Bruce, does this show up your alley?
Oh, totally. You know that.
I do know that.
My question for John is, when did you come up with the RP knot? What year?
Well, that's a good question as far as year goes. It had to have been close to 10 years ago. I was on watch on the bridge of a ship, on the bridge of the Royal Polaris, and we're on our way to, we had passed by Alejos Rocks, and we were on our way to Hurricane Bank, and Daryl came up and showed me something. It was a bunch of mono wrapped around spectra, and I tried to tie it, and I found it was very difficult to try to wrap the fluorocarbon around the spectra because of the springiness in the fluorocarbon. And I said, why don't we just reverse this and try wrapping the spectra around the fluorocarbon? So I tried it and pulled it down, and it seemed to work pretty good. And I probably tied it 15 or 20 times. Then after once daylight rolled around and we had some time, I went out and I started pulling on it. I'd hook it onto something on the bridge there and start pulling as hard as I could, and it didn't break. It wasn't breaking. That was about 10 years ago.
That's cool.
In the wheelhouse of the RP.
That's correct.
That's where it was invented. Wow, that's cool. Yep. You also mentioned, we talked
about 5 years ago.
I'm sorry?
My friend Bill showed me that knot about 5 years ago, and it's the best bass fishing knot I've ever used.
Yeah, I agree.
I use it for bass fishing, too, quite a bit.
Yeah, it works.
The bottom line is that I've had so many guys that tell me, and the purpose of the knot is to keep it small. They say, well, I use 7 or 8 wraps instead of 5. I have time and time and time again proved that you need no more than 5, period. That's it. It cannot it can't slip, it won't get any tighter, and it won't be any stronger by only using 5 wraps.
I'm that guy John's talking about. I can't do it. I can't do 5. I just can't. My mind just won't let me. I just can't. I got to do 6 or 7.
Well, I tell you what,
I just have to.
Rick,
I believe you. I mean, I believe John.
If you take your dowel and you wrap the spectra.
Now, the Gucci dowel or just the wood dowel?
Either one that doesn't slip.
Okay.
And you put your hook on a little hook holder on the boat or something like that, and you start pulling back and pulling back and pulling back. Watch where the mono or fluorocarbon connection is and see if that tag line moves. If it doesn't move, that should prove it to you right then and there.
John,
is all you need.
You don't need to convince me. You don't need to convince me with logic at all. It's the most illogical. I just can't do it. I mean, I know if John, trust me, and I'm saying this verbatim, like if John says this is good enough, that is all I need.
Yeah.
But when my fingers are starting to twist one over the other, I just can't stop at 5. I just can't. I can't do it. Like if 5's good, boy, 6 got to be better.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to use 6, by all means. If you feel more comfortable, use 6. I'm just telling you, you don't need more than
5. Hey, thanks a lot for the phone call this morning. Appreciate that very much. Now, earlier in the show, before the show, we were talking about different knots, and you were saying that over a 150-pound test, you like to use something different?
I use the Tony Pena or Bob Sands knot, whichever name you want to call it.
They're one and the same?
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. I use that on 100 and 130 pound. That's the knot that I tie.
100 and 130 pounds.
That's correct. I use the RP knot on 80 and below, and I use the Tony Pena or Bob Sands on 100 and 130.
Why?
It's a little bit smaller profile because most of the knot is cinched down as far as the spectra over the fluorocarbon, and when you cast it, the cone angle of the spectra will be going through the guides out to the tip, so there's nothing to hang up on.
Versus on the John Collins knot, there's that little tick of fluorocarbon.
That is correct. So on 80 and below, I use on the RP knot, John Collins, whatever, and I use a Tony Pena on 100 and 130. And I can't begin to tell you how many people that I've taught how to use that connection, and that's all they use.
That's all they use.
Yeah, I had a guy one time on a trip on the Independence years ago. He had bought 3 pre-made wind-ons, and first 3 he used failed. He was really upset.
I'll bet.
Could have been done on a Monday morning with the person making them was hungover, or Friday afternoon when he was in a hurry to get out of the office, or whatever. I'm not going to say what company it was, but I showed him how to do the Tony Pena knot, and he was fishing 130, and that's all he uses now, and he's 100% convinced that's the best way to do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's go ahead and jump onto those phones.
You got it, buddy. Chuck in Long Beach is up next on Let's Talk Hookup. Hi, Chuck. Good morning.
Hey, Happy New Year, everybody.
Same to you, Chuck.
Yeah, you may want to consider making John the first 2-day guest ever with the wealth of knowledge he's got in his head. Too many
Back to backers.
You're just tapping it.
Yeah. What is in the time you've been fishing? What are some of the biggest innovations you've seen come down, and what is probably the most overhyped thing you've seen come down?
Well, the biggest innovation was Spectra, in my opinion, by being able to fill a reel up with 3 times as much line as mono, which gives the ability to use a smaller reel, castability, and the reels that are made in this day and age with the drag pressure you can put on a small reel and be able to fight big fish on a smaller reel. There was nothing worse than soaking a 50 wide years ago filled with 130-pound Spectra. At the end of the day, holy mackerel, your arms were falling off. It was heavy. Nowadays, you use a Talica 20, 25, a lighter rod full of Spectra and a little short top shot. I mean, you fish it all day long. You don't even realize you've been holding a rod and reel all day. That to me was one of the biggest ones. And the other one, and some people will disagree with me, but I honestly feel fluorocarbon made a big, big, big difference in the ability of people to get bit better than what they were on straight mono.
There you go. Thanks a lot for the call.
What a great answer, because you think about what Spectre did. No more backups, no more big reels, now small reels, no more, way more line capacity, bait swims better. I mean, just that line changed a bunch of different avenues about how you catch
and the quality of the reels we have nowadays. The free spool is absolutely incredible on it, especially on these Talicas. The Avets and the Makira 30, all these reels, their free spool is just unbelievable.
Have you tried the Power Pro Max Quattro?
I have not. I'm sorry.
Boy. We need to get some of that for you, because that stuff is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good.
Thinner. Yeah,
I've heard nothing but good things
especially for your
about
bass fishing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of bass fishing, the one and only Tommy P has a question. Have you ever fished Lake El Salto in Mexico?
I had that one up next too.
I have not fished Lake El Salto. I tell you, if 30 years ago I'd have been chawing at the bits to go there, but I'm sorry, but at my age right now, my time is limited. I'm a realist, and I just want to spend my time fishing a lake where I feel like I have a real legitimate chance of catching a very large bass.
You don't want to catch, you've caught enough bass. You don't want to catch a bunch of bass. You just want to catch a big one.
I don't mind catching a lot of bass. I just don't want to take a trip and spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
Because what it would cost me to go there for a week's fishing, I can spend up here a whole season.
Yeah. Well, now
being retired, of course, you got to watch your money.
Well, you've spoiled Captain Ryan Boston. Now he's Mr. El Salto. Now he goes to El Salto. I can't catch these little ones down here. I got to go with John, right?
Oh yeah, but he enjoys himself down there. It's getting away from everything.
Oh, it's cool. It's a great experience. I'm looking forward. Tommy P and I are going at the end of January with Cass and the gang down there. So it's going to be fun. I've heard
so many good things about it, and also that other lake, that new lake between El Salto and Mazatlan. That's supposed to be an up-and-comer as far as better grade fish goes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fish, but I don't think there's quite as many big fish in that one yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
They said it's a kick.
Yeah,
a real kick.
All right, let's go ahead and jump back in the phones, Rick.
You got it. How about this time we talk to another Chuck this time, Chuck from Dana Point. Hi, Chuck. Welcome to Let's Talk Hookup.
Hey, guys. Another great show. You learn so much. I tell everybody, it's how you learn stuff. You fish by the old guys, or you listen to Let's Talk Hookup. And I learned something today about the bait. I've asked that question at the bait tank so many times. What's the difference in the colors? And nobody's had the answer. And now I got it. I'll pass that knowledge on too. But I think you missed the line class record with that Dorado. And plus, they should have a category. How old was that 15-pound test that'd been on that ship for a month or two? That's a good question. But what we're all missing is you're a cook. That everybody's talking about your RP nut video. What about your peanut sauce video? See, I love cooking and eating fish, and that peanut sauce, I spread that on the rail too. I tell people how to make it, where I learned it. And
what's that?
No way, really?
Haven't heard of that.
Peanut sauce, the RP on the boat. You had that little thing about that peanut sauce you guys make. But my question is, since you've been fishing so long, what's your favorite fish dish? What's your go-to?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. The last few years, I really get fired up on fishing that big yellowfin down below. There's absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, there is nothing. When you're fly lining a sardine or a cavy or a tube mackerel, and that line just thumps and starts moving off, it's the biggest rush in the world.
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Is that great?
Prior to that, honestly, my favorite fishing was fishing yellowtail on a surface iron. Bar none. Very
few of us
exciting.
out here, huh?
Oh, very, very exciting to fire a jig out there when you see fish rolling around and get 3 or 4 winds and the rod tip just stops. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I like wahoo fishing too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, all of the above.
Wahoo fishing is a limited amount of time to do it.
How about eating? How about eating? Favorite dish to eat?
I enjoy wahoo a lot. I really do. It's a very, very difficult fish to beat, and most people that don't care for fish can't believe they're eating fish when they eat wahoo. It's just incredible.
That's cool. Hey, appreciate the phone. Yeah, great job. Appreciate the phone call very much. When we come back, we got more Let's Talk Hookup coming your way. More of your phone calls, more great information. You stay tuned. It's Let's Talk Hookup on the Let's Talk Hookup app and the mightier 1090.
The name that stands out among anglers is Fisherman's Landing, your top choice in local and long-range fishing. Hi, this is Doug Kern. Our hardworking crew will make sure your fishing experience is one to remember. We offer the finest open party trips from 1 to 3 days, the best charter boats available, and of course, our world-renowned long-range fleet is second to none. Fisherman's Landing is a full-service operation offering great half-day trips on the Dolphin and full-day open party trips on the spacious and comfortable Liberty. Since we introduced the full-day trips at Fisherman's Landing, the 85-foot Liberty has become a favorite among full-day operations with bunks for your comfort, huge bait capacity, and RSW fish holds to keep your catch fresh. Plus, Liberty has a big modern galley and 2 interior heads with showers. All our open party trips from half-day, full, or 1 to 3 day trips can easily be booked online at fishermanslanding.com or give us a call at 619-221-8500. I'll see you at Fisherman's Landing in San Diego.
It's a fact of life in Southern California. Hard water. And if you have a pool, your tile shows it. Here comes San Diego Pool Tile Cleaning to the rescue. With their specialized equipment, SD Pool Tile Cleaning can safely remove the stubborn calcium deposits most pool owners struggle with. SD Pool Tile Cleaning can make your tile look bright and clean, almost like new again. High-pressure pool maintenance cleaning can damage grout, stone, and dislodged tiles. San Diego Pool Tile Cleaning uses a low-pressure media blasting technique to protect your pool surface from damage and yield fantastic results. So stop making excuses for your stained tiles on your pool. Make them look like new again with San Diego Pool Tile Cleaning. Check their website at sdpooltilecleaning.com and let their professional staff rejuvenate your pool tile. When it comes to professional swimming pool tile cleaning service, there's only one name you can trust: San Diego Pool Tile Cleaning. Check sdpooltilecleaning.com.
This is Captain Tim Ekstrom from the long-range vessel Royal Star. With my partners Randy Toussaint and Brian Sims, we have set the bar for the long-range fishing experience. A spring 8-day, summer 5-day, or a fly-down, fly-back 11-day winter trip, we deliver the highest quality long-range voyage you will find. From our premium RSW fish storage to our top-of-the-line chefs and crew, Royal Star distinguishes itself from all others. Want to grab a spot on the Royal Star? Check us out at RoyalStarSportFishing.com or call Tracy at 619-224-4764.
For all your insurance needs, Snap Insurance is your top choice, providing anglers and boaters with the best in boat insurance and the lowest rates. The experts at Snap Insurance will make sure your boat and property are covered right. Traveling to Mexico? Snap has you covered. Work with your agent to wrap your home and auto with your boat policy to save even more. Get advice on your current boat policy or any of your insurance needs. Snap Insurance, 800-527-6617 or snapins.com.
For quality, the Islander out of Fisherman's Landing is a favorite among anglers. But Islander Charter is much more than great fishing. They also do incredible Guadalupe white shark diving trips, as well as a schedule of kayak mothership trips. Check out Islander-Charters.com. The Islander is San Diego's leader when it comes to 1.5 to 5 day fishing. Experience the Islander difference. Visit Islander-Charters.com for all the details.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Hookup. Having a great time here this morning. If you want to join us, 213 area code 432-1090.
Yeah, next weekend we have a couple great shows. Next Saturday, Valerie Hoperich is actually going to come into the world headquarters here from the Queen Charlotte Safari lady, and such a wonderful place up there, Queen Charlotte. The next Sunday, a very special show, and it's going to be with Doug and David Nielsen right here with us, and a tribute to their dad, Jack Nielsen. And we were just talking with John. I said, have you ever fished with Jack? And you said, yeah.
Wonderful guy.
Great guy to fish with.
Very, very good guy.
And so much fun to be around, whether it be on the boat or on the land, right?
No, cool. Very, very cool guy. Just, low-key, very dry humor, but humor all the time.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Super nice guy. And very generous, too.
Yeah.
Very generous.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder, now that Jack's not going to be giving away all those reels, the boys' bottom line over at Accurat's going to come back up. Huh?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. But, yeah, he was a generous guy. And so are Doug and David, too. They're just...
they're the best. The whole family is awesome.
The whole family. And,
and they really cared about our industry. Like, really
they did a lot for CCA. They did a lot for Captain Rollo's Kids at Sea, Friends of Rollo. I mean, Jack and the boys have been generous donators to many Accurate products to Friends of Rollo and stuff like that. Definitely going to be. But that's going to be a great show. It's a week from the day. Basically, we're going to have a lot of people from the industry calling in with Jack stories. But if you have a Jack story, be prepared to call in next Sunday, because that's what it's going to be all about. Is just telling stories and making a great conversation about a wonderful guy, our good buddy Jack Nielsen.
I'm sure he's looking down with Del.
Oh yeah,
all the luck in the world.
Oh yeah, his
number one buddy.
Yeah,
no question.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's going to be a really fun show.
You got it. Hey, I want to remind you, this portion of the show is sponsored in part by Dana Landing on Mission Bay, your one-stop shop for everything that you need to go fishing. A complete saltwater tackle shop. They have a full deli, Mexican and California licenses. They do trips and six-pack charters. And when it comes to freshwater tackle, check out East County Bait and Tackle, full of all the freshwater tackle and live bait that you need for a great day in the lake. Dana Landing is right across from SeaWorld, next to the Dana Launch Ramp in Mission Bay. And East County Bait and Tackle, they're at the end of the 67 freeway at Mapleview and Lakeside. Check DanaLanding.com for more info.
Still a little time to get through. The phones have been very, very busy for John. 213-432-1090 is our number. You talk to Andrew there, and you also have a chance to win that one-day trip on the Freedom out of 22nd Street Landing. Let's jump in the phones, Rick.
Joe in San Pedro is up next on Let's Talk Hookup. Hi, Joe.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning. Happy New Year. Thank you for taking my call. Okay?
Yeah, buddy.
You're welcome.
I have two questions. The first one, when you're in the position to have to add some spectra, you're on the boat and the guy next to you got the big one, and they got to cut your line and you got to add some line to it. I use a back-to-back uni. What knot are you using to connect to add some spectra back to get a nice little spool going? And secondly, do you not use any type of mono top shot, like 50, 60 feet for stretch on your tuna rigs? And those are my two questions.
No. Okay. Number one, your second question, I do not use any kind of monofilament when I fish spectra to fluorocarbon. I don't use any of that. I figure the rods that I'm using, they shut off fairly quick, but they got a soften up to a tip to absorb an awful lot of the head shaking and the quick run and so forth. So I do not use any mono. And the main reason I don't use a lot of mono is that I don't want that bait to have to drag that mono through the water. Like I said, especially when you have to get that bait out away from the boat quite a ways in order to get a bite. By the time it drags that line out there, it's pretty wore out. You look at the 130-pound line, that's a pretty good sized line, a lot of drag in the water, and bait can only swim so far before it peters out. So that's why I don't do that. Yeah. And as far as spectra to spectra, obviously if you have hollow spectra, the best thing to do is splice it. It doesn't take that long to splice it, and it's nice and clean. I use a connection called a 7/7, and it's Roy Rose showed me how to do this on the RP. He calls it Roy's mistake.
Roy's mistake.
He messed around, and he figured out how to do it. And then it took him 2 hours to figure out what he did. And I use that knot to connect spectra to spectra if it's non-hollow spectra, only for solid spectra. It's called a 7/7.
For solid Power Pro or Spectra, 7/7. What about the back-to-back uni?
That's fine. Yeah, like I said,
the 7/7 is better. You think?
Nah, not necessarily.
Where can
better.
you learn the 7/7?
That's a good question. I showed a lot of guys. I showed Sanford how to do it, and he fell in love with it real quick.
All right, so we might have to do another. I see another video series on our YouTube channel.
I know exactly where you're going to find it. Coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon. For sure.
It's a little bit involved, but I have it. Every reel I have that has solid spectra on it has 2 or 3 of those knots on it, and I've never had one fail.
Just if your spectra gets or Power Pro gets low,
if it gets low, you want to
add it. You just add
Correct.
it on.
It takes you from It's better than strip.
Now, if it's hollow, it's much easier because you just
much easier to splice it in. That's the best way to do it.
So that brings up the question: when you're fishing your heavier tackle, your 100, 130, are you fishing solid or are you fishing hollow?
I'm fishing hollow.
You're fishing hollow.
I am fishing hollow. Yeah. Only on that heavier spectrum.
On the heavier. So 80 and below, you're fishing solid.
60 and below. 65 and below, I'm fishing solid.
Okay, so 80 and above, you're fishing hollow.
That's correct.
Yeah. Just for the doing loop-to-loop knots, doing the splice, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really if you can practice splicing a little bit, it's pretty darn quick. It doesn't take much time at all.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you're going to do that, normally you'll do that at night after fishing's over.
The thing that's nice about that too, your line could still be fine, but you fished it, you had a couple baits that went way out and the hook turned around and he helicoptered all the way in and your line was twisted up, or a needlefish went through and got your line nicked up, or whatever scenario exists. It's just a couple of seasons old. You can strip off a couple 100 feet, cut it, splice brand new in there, and your cost is very low because you're only replacing 100 feet, but now what you're fishing with is nice, clean, straight, no twist lines, just easy to swap in and out. You can switch it just for the sake of having it be nice and fresh.
And it's 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
And a lot of times on the reels that I have 100-pound spectra on, my last 50 yards is 130 pound. I splice 130 pound into the 100 pound.
Oh.
Only because I feel at times I might want to use this outfit to fish 130, or if I'm using 100, and I can feel like I can put a lot more pressure on that fish for the last 50 yards, which are critical as far as putting pressure on a fish goes to get them to the boat.
Sure. Hey, thanks a lot for the phone call this morning. Appreciate your phone call this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Happy New Year to you. Hey, Tony from San Francisco. We already covered this, but I wanted to go through this because thanks for listening on the Let's Talk Hookup app. Tony wanted to know about Wahoo fishing techniques, tackle, rod, reel, jigs, bait. So give us your Wahoo setup once again.
Okay. I use a Seeker SSR 7660. It's a 7.5 foot, 50 to 80 pound rod. It shuts off very quickly. And
stiff rod.
Very stiff. And I use an Avid HX filled with 80 pound Spectra. I use about 4 or 5 feet of 80 pound mono tied to the Spectra. And with that, I'll use a barrel swivel and about 4 feet of 80-pound single-strand wire with a haywire twist tied either to a bomb or a jig.
What's your go-to jig or bomb?
My bomb, I use Captain Jimmy bombs. They're the bomb.
They're the bomb. Okay.
They are good. And then I've got a bunch of Mylar material I carry with me. You don't lose a bomb very often, but you do get those. The bombs get stripped up pretty good when you're getting Wahoo. And at night, I just usually redo all my bombs up and ready for the next day.
All right.
That's great.
Let's go ahead and jump back in the phones.
You got it. John in Huntington Beach is up next to join us here on Let's Talk Hookup. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, guys. Awesome show and learning so much. I have a question about freshwater bass fishing. Are you a live bait guy or artificials or both? And what about the trout patterns of the artificials? Have you tried those?
Okay, number one, I don't use swim baits. I know a lot of guys that do, and they have good success on using them. I have since 1987. I've been a crawdad guy. I fish live crawdads, and I'm at this point in time in my life, I'm just looking to catch a big fish. And I like to see what I'm fishing for rather than fish blind and hope that I get a bite. If I don't see them on the meter, I don't stop and fish. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. And I've gotten to the point now where I can see fish on the meter, and I can probably tell you within 1 or 2 pounds how big that fish is. And if I see the fish that I'm looking for, I will back off and start fishing for that fish right away. And 9 times out of 10, if they're going to bite you, get bit on the first cast.
Wow. How do you hook your crawdad?
I hook them through the nose, and I studied crawdads for a long time. I've noticed that I hook them through the beak and the nose because I've noticed when a crawdad walks,
going up, point up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Point coming from the bottom through the top.
Okay.
I've noticed that when crawdads walk around, they almost 99% of the time they're walking forward. When they get scared, they go backwards. Mm. And when you hook one through the tail, which a lot of guys do, you're pulling them backwards. It's very unusual for a crawdad to keep walking backwards like that with a tail. So I walk them forward. And number two, when a bass eats a crawdad, for those of you that fish a lot of bass, how many times have you held them by the lower jaw, went to take your lure out, and you see these 2 little feelers sticking up out of their throat? That's because a bass, 99% of the time, a bass will swallow a crawdad tail first. And by hooking them in the tail, a lot of times you might gut hook a fish, which can hurt them. But if you hook them in the nose and you set the hook, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you're going to hook them right in the corner of the mouth or in the roof of the mouth where you won't hurt them when you release them.
Great. All right. I have another serious question for you here, John. How do you study crawdads?
You just watch them. I used to have some tanks in my backyard there, and I would put a few in one tank just to watch them. And I mean, it's incredible. You watch them. They just walk around. They just kind of walk around. They might hover in a corner for a while, but when they start to get out and walk around, they're always walking forward. And that's why I like to work a crawdad through the nose and walk them forward.
Okay.
And when all of a sudden you're moving him nice and slow across the bottom, if you feel that line start to go tick, 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 tick real quick, you know something's looking at him.
That's the tail.
He's not happy.
That's the tail trying to kick backwards. He's not a happy camper at all.
You and Sanford are going to the lake, and you're prepared for big fish, and it's the right time of season and moon and everything. How many baits are you bringing with you?
I usually bring about 100.
Okay.
100?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Very first time that I went bass fishing with crawdads, the very first time, I got one that was almost 15 pounds.
Jeez.
But we got on a bite, and we only had about 3 dozen baits, and by noon we were out of bait. And I picked up a dead one that a bass had spit out in the bottom of the boat. I pinned it on and threw it out, and I got another fish. And I said, I will never, ever run out of bait again.
Wow.
And that's why we.
So you don't mess around.
I come back with a lot of bait a lot of times, but I don't ever want to be in that situation again.
All right.
That's cool.
Hey, thanks a lot for the phone call this morning.
A fun text, especially for John being both passenger and crew member. He wanted to know, could you quickly explain the process of loading bait at the bait receiver?
You know, every captain has a little bit different way of loading his bait. Some guys will spend more time at the bait receivers and load very light scoops, and it depends on how warm the water is that you're pulling the bait out of. The warmer the water, the tendency is if you have a lot of bait in your loading scoop and put them in the tank like that, they have a tendency to lose their scales. And when they do that, they become very susceptible to any kind of fungus in the water, ick, or whatever you might want to call it. Years ago during the summer, I can remember loading bait with buckets. Mm-hmm. They would bucket the bait with water in there with 8 or 10 baits in each bucket. It took forever to load the bait, but no scales came off the bait. It came on the bait real nice.
Doing the bucket. I always
doing
wonder
the bucket
about that.
way. That used to be a common way to do it, especially in the middle of the summer when the water was real warm like that. Bait gets very lethargic.
And the theory is just that the bait is never in the net where there's no water and the the bait is just smashing on and rubbing off on the other baits that are in the scoop. It's just when it's in a bucket full of water, it's just in its normal state.
That's correct. And a lot of times you could tell as soon as they put the bait in the loading scoop and they're passing it up to the guy on deck to put in one of the tanks, you can just tell the way the bait's acting in the scoop. If it's going ballistic, that's not a good sign.
Okay.
If it's really, because every time when there's a lot of bait in there and they start kicking around quite a bit, that means they're bumping up against each other and some of the scales are starting to come off.
When you crack the lid at the bait receiver and you look into the bait box, do you instantly know, are you licking your chops every time? Like, is it an instant thing where like, phew, this is going to be good stuff, and vice versa, or can it surprise you, or do you know every time?
More often than not, when you lift the lid up and there's bait up, when it goes down quick in a bowl, you want to load that bait on the boat. That's the one you want to load on the boat.
We'll take this one.
If it's swimming around lethargic on the surface, you might want to think twice about it. But then a lot of times, some of the weaker bait will stay up and the stronger bait will stay down.
Yeah. The Everingham Brothers Bait Company has improved their bait catching and loading and handling skills so much that it's very rare you get, even in the hot months, you get a bad load of bait.
They have done, I can't emphasize what an incredible job that company has done to support the fleet over the years.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
And they're so supportive of the whole fishing community. So
very much
we should be very thankful for the Everingham Brothers, no question.
They're unbelievable, those guys.
All right.
And always. You want to talk about consistent, like, we just don't ever think about it.
The only day they closed was Christmas.
Yeah.
That was the only day.
They're the unsung
Other than that,
hero.
they're there.
For sure.
Yeah. 7/24.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah. Well, the phones are packed up. Everybody's excited to talk to John. Why don't we jump back into him and talk to Jim? He's called us from National City this morning. What's up, Jim?
Crawdad Jim.
Hey, Hey, good morning, guys. Another great show. A couple of things here. Years ago, Larry Bartroff, I had a conversation with him, and it seems like he told me that these bass can spawn 2 or 3 times a year depending on the water conditions. Is that a fact, John? And also, during that pre-spawn, especially this time of year, they seem to really like those crawdads. The crawdads have a certain nutrition value to them that help the bass through the spawn. Is there anything to that, or am I out in left field?
No, you're not out in left field. Number one, this time of the year, the water's cold and the bass are very lethargic. Seeing a crawdad walking across the bottom is pretty damn easy to swim up to and suck it in versus chasing a trout around in that cold water. So the metabolism is nowhere near as high as it is during the summer months. During the summer months, they like to chase fin bait a lot more. They'll chase trout this time of the year. There's no question about it. But an easy picking of a crawdad this time of the year is really a piece of cake.
I think that there's going to be a run on crawdads at East County Bait and Tackle. What do you think after the show?
In this area down here, you can use them. Some of the lakes, they won't let you use them in some of the lakes.
Oh,
obviously.
Really?
Yeah, Casitas, Castaic, can't use them. Wolford, can't use them. So they're afraid of transferring quagga mussel.
Oh, quagga mussel. Yeah, I gotcha.
So it just depends on which lake you fish. And the other factor as far as spawning 2 or 3 times a year, I've heard comments about that, and I've heard 2 times a year. I've never heard 3.
Jim, thanks a lot for the call this morning.
Great. Hey, I want to remind you, this portion of the show is sponsored by Gamakatsu Nautilus Hooks. Gamakatsu Nautilus Circle Hooks have been the go-to hooks this season for tuna, from that Nautilus Light, the standard wire Nautilus, or the Nautilus HD. Gamakatsu has got you covered. Pick the right size, ringed or non-ringed, and be ready to get bit. Hey, stock up on Gamakatsu Nautilus Circle Hooks. They are all in stock now, and we know how busy the season was last year. This is a very smart time to hook up, especially on those small sizes of hooks that were so tough to get your hands on last year. It's
Load up now.
Time to do it,
because they're coming back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and jump back on the phone.
That sounds good. Rich from Bradley is up next on Let's Talk Hookup. Good morning, Rich.
Howdy. I called in to talk about almost the same thing with the quagga mussels, and it's basically become the COVID of freshwater fishing. The next thing you know, our crawdads are going to have to be walking around with little masks on them. And Yeah, most of the lakes, you can't bring anything with any water in it, including a crawdad. So I'm wondering, with your study of crawdads, have you learned anything that you could translate into artificial fishing that you might want to share with us as far as rigging goes, line size, or any other presentation tips that we might all wind up having to adapt to, including the lakes that you can currently fish crawdads in?
Yeah, normally a lake that you get bit good on crawdads is normally a good lake to bit on jigs for the most part. It's a slow working bait, bounces off the rocks. Bass have a tendency to whack the jigs. Other type of creature baits that can be Carolina rigged and moved across the bottom at a slow rate of speed, that's also another good way to do it. But as long as we're able to use crawdads in some of the lakes, I'm going to continue using them until we can't use them anymore, and then by that time, I'll be in my happy hunting ground, probably.
Yeah, and it's all about the quagga mussel. That's why.
That is correct.
Because you could be transferring some because the crawdad might have them in them, or the water that the crawdad's in.
Years ago, we were using crawdads at Casitas. Casitas was a phenomenal crawdad lake. I mean, unbelievable. I got a lot of very big fish out of Lake Casitas, and it was very, very big. They showed a picture of a crawdad with a quagga mussel on it. That was the end of the.
That was it.
That was it. And who knows? You can show a picture of a woman with 3 breasts if you want to take the time to finesse up a picture. So
sure.
I think it was a bunch of BS, but they quit using the crawdads at Casitas. Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot for the call.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to find out what lucky guy's going fishing on board the Freedom. We got more Let's Talk Hookup coming your way on the Let's Talk Hookup app and the mightier 1090.
Seakeeper, the leader in marine stabilization, has launched its newest, smallest, and most radically different model, the Seakeeper 1. Now, for the first time, stabilization is available for boats as small as 23 feet. The Seakeeper 1 is designed to eliminate up to 95% of boat roll on vessels 23 to 30 feet. With a fresh new look, the Seakeeper 1 has a compact flush mount installation and runs on 12-volt battery power. Installation is a breeze. It can fit under almost any seat. Now your skiff can enjoy the comfort and enjoyment that only a Seakeeper-equipped boat can provide. Check out the Seakeeper demo boat at upcoming shows and arrange a free test drive. Seakeeper has changed the lives of many Southern California anglers, including Pete Gray, and will allow you to stay on the fishing grounds when others need to head back to port. Visit Seakeeper.com/take-a-ride to arrange a demo. Eliminate up to 95% of boat roll on your trailer boat. Seakeeper. Once you feel it, you'll never boat without it.
When it comes to fishing rods for saltwater, there's just one name you need to know, CalStar. Take, for example, the Graphiter series. It's a true graphite and fiberglass composite rod, the finest it's ever been built. And for anglers seeking traditional performance, durability, and quality at an affordable price, the CalStar West Coast series of rods and blanks are the ones for you. Their master craftsmen bring decades of rod building experience to every rod they make. So if you want your fishing rods to be truly state-of-the-art, I always recommend CalStar at fine tackle stores everywhere.
The state-of-the-art long-range sport fishing vessel, the Independence, delivers the top quality, comfort, and fishability you look for in a long-range boat. Veteran captains Mark Pisano and Paul Strasser built this incredible 112-foot vessel with the most modern technology and luxurious comfort available. Once you go on the Independence, you'll be back. Call Independence Sports Fishing at 619-226-6006 or check IndependenceSportFishing.com. A top fleet and superb fishing is what Seaforth Sport Fishing in Mission Bay is all about. With free parking and fully stocked tackle shop, it's no wonder Seaforth Sport Fishing is a favorite among anglers. Come aboard top boats like the Aztec, Cortez, Endeavor, Apollo, Outer Limit, El Gato Dos, Pride, Tribute Pacifica, Pacific Voyager, and the Voyager. Plus, the new Seaforth, Sea-Watch, and San Diego offer the finest half and full day trips available. Seaforth Sport Fishing. For charters or regular open parties, schedule check seaforthlanding.com. Run by fishermen for fishermen in Mission Bay.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Hookup. All right, the big winner going fishing on that one-day trip on board the Freedom at a 22nd Street landing. Again, thanks to Mark for that great prize. Joe in San Pedro. Joe, congratulations. You're going to love fishing on the Freedom.
Just have to roll right down the street.
You're in your backyard.
Go fishing on the Freedom
Nice.
in 2021. Thanks to Mark and thanks to John and Judy for all that. And John, good luck on your trip.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
This was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, really excited to hear your tales and and all the different fish you caught, and also all the new creations that you're going to come up with. As far as knots and and that's part of the key, right? Is going fishing. Yeah.
The key is to learn a few good things and master those rather than learn a whole bunch of things and not be good at any one of them.
There you go.
That's the name of the game. It really is.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to go on the Independence, a beautiful long-range boat, we can call you or your wife. What's the number?
Call them 619-226-6006.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Thank you out there for all your great support and looking forward to a great 2021. Next Saturday, Valerie Hoperich from Queen Charlotte Safaris is going to be here. And then next Sunday is the very special tribute to our good buddy Jack Nielsen with Doug and David Nielsen here. Thanks to Andrew in the studio and thanks to Adam on the WAP. And we'll see you next week right back here on the Mightier 1090 and the Let's Talk Hookup app.